Hello everyone, and welcome to my Rubber Soul collection video. Now, I'm quite a way through my series of Beatles videos now, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for all the positive feedback I've been having on my previous videos. I do really appreciate that. So anyway, I'll start on today's video. Now, Rubber Soul I'm going to have to go fairly quickly with because there are a lot of copies to show. So we'll dive straight in with the Loud Cut, which is of course the very first mono pressing. Now there are a couple of variations of the Loud Cut, and I'll explain those. Okay, first of all I'll show the matrix numbers. Now all Loud Cuts have a matrix number which ends in a 1 there, see? So you've got XEX579-1. And that is how you know you've got a Loud Cut. I'll show the matrix number on the side 2 as well. Here's side 2. Right, okay, and that is also a 1 there. So this has 1-1 matrix numbers, and that's the most important thing to look for. Now let's take a look at the labels. Now this isn't the best copy, as you can see there's quite a lot of spindle marks, but nothing too serious. So, on the perimeter text, it starts off with the Gramophone Company Limited, and it has the sold in the UK text. And this label has the sans serif font. Now the fonts are going to be very important in this video. And it's also got the KT tax code down side 1. And there's side 2 as well. So we've got 1-1 matrix numbers and sans serif font. And also the sleeve is made by Garrett and Lofthouse. Okay, so that was the first variation of the Loud Cut, and this is a slightly different version. Right, so as on the previous copy, the matrix numbers are -1, and on side 2 also -1. And that of course shows that it's a Loud Cut. However, this label has the Times New Roman font, and it still has the Gramophone Company Limited and the sold in the UK text, and the P1965 still there, but of course it's been moved down slightly to the right from the XEX.579 there. So far this has been 2 Loud Cuts, both with 1-1 matrix numbers, but with labels with different fonts. So you can find a Loud Cut with either of these label types. To be honest, I'm sure you'd be able to find a Loud Cut with one of each, because there's quite a few label crossovers with Rubber Soul, so I would probably expect that somewhere. And this is just another copy of that exact same pressing. Yeah, so as you can see, it's the same label as before, and of course still with the -1 matrix number. Now this next copy is a bit of an interesting one because it's a transition press. So this was made when the Loud Cut mixes were replaced with like the proper standard mixes. However, this copy has one side with the Loud Cut mix, and the other side just has the standard mix. And you can really hear the difference if you listen to the two sides, because I believe it's side 1 that has the Loud Cut mixes on this copy, and the bass is a lot heavier on that side than it is on the other. So there's side 1. This copy has the sans serif, by the way. And let's look at the matrix number for that. So it's XEX579-1, same as all the other Loud Cuts. Now if we look at the matrix numbers for side 2, we see XEX580-4 rather than -1. So side 1 has the Loud Cut mixes and side 2 just has the regular mixes. Now here we have another transition press, except it's the opposite way around this time. So now side 2 has the loud cut mixes, and side 1 is the standard mixes. Also, it's got the different font on this label too, so this has the Times New Roman font on both sides, which again just goes to show you can get any label for the early pressings of Rubber Soul, loud cut or otherwise. So let's go for the matrix numbers. XEX580-1 for the loud cut side, and here XEX579-4 for the standard side. Okay, so that's all of my loud cuts shown. We now move on to the first standard pressings of the album, which just have the regular mixes that we all know. So this is the first copy like that. This copy also has a Ernest J. Day sleeve as well. And here's the label with the sans serif font. This looks exactly the same as the first pressing labels. It's only the matrix numbers that make the difference up to now. So there's XEX579-4 for side 1, and this one side 2 -4 there as well. So this is kind of probably the most common mono version of Rubber Soul. This is the one you see the most often. And this next copy is exactly the same as the previous one, except for one major difference. So here's the label. Now it looks very similar to the ones we've seen up to now. However, there's one major difference, and that's the groove which runs around the whole label. Now this is not a decker pressing like with the Beatles and Please Please Me. It's just a EMI press on a very old machine, and it often gets mistaken for like CBS pressings and all sorts, but it's not. And that's quite hard to get. And here's another copy of the second pressing. However, this copy does not have the groove going around the edge of the label. And here's a copy which is just like the one I've shown there now, and this is probably my worst condition copy actually, so nothing too special there. Here we have something slightly more interesting. It's another crossover pressing of sorts. Now this time, instead of the crossover being to do with the matrix numbers, it's to do with the labels. So we see side 1 here with the Times New Roman font, and side 2 with the sans serif font. So it just has one of each label on the same record. Okay, so we're now moving on to the variation B of the second pressing. Now the label is very similar to the regular sans serif labels we've seen up to now. However, there's a slight difference over here, and that's that the 1965's been moved down to the right. It's sort of like mimicking the Times New Roman labels, but obviously just with a sans serif font in the position of the publishing credit here. Right, so we are now finally moving on to some presses which have significant changes. So this is the third pressing, and that was in 1969. Okay, so here's the label for the 69 pressing. Now as you can see, the soul in the UK has vanished, as it always does on these presses, and still got the Gramophone Company Limited text. There's side 2. And the matrix numbers for this copy are 5-5. And here is the fourth pressing, which was available from 1981 until 1982. And there's a small difference on the back, and that is the flip backs have gone, firstly, but also the PMC slightly different, just like a slightly different font to the previous ones. And here's the 80s pressing. not only does this not have sold in the UK text, it has the mono in the corner and the all rights to the producer perimeter text. So other than the 2014 remaster in the box set, that is all the monos I've got to show. So I'll move on to the stereos now. So here we have the stereo first pressing from 1965. Now the loud cuts are only for the monos, you couldn't get those in the stereos. And here's the label. Now the first press stereos have 1/1 matrix numbers. And this is on the Times New Roman font, and has the Gramophone Company Limited on the perimeter text there. Now the variation for the first pressing is located up here. Now you see the big stereo above the yellow parlophone. Well, where the word stereo ends is available in quite a few different variations. So here the O pretty much is in line with the end of the E, and it's the same for the word stereo on this side, pretty much in line there. Whereas on the variation B, we see that on side 1 the O in stereo is in the same position as it was for the for the variation A. However, on side 2 we can see that it's in a different position, so it's now just past the N rather than just past the E, so that's a very slight variation. To be honest, there'll probably be more than just this variation of that out there, but that's the one I've got to show. So now we have the second pressing variation B. I don't actually have the variation A because it's incredibly rare, because it has a spelling error on the label, and that's with the track 2 on side 1, which is Norwegian wood. It's spelt with an extra I, and that's very hard to get, so I've not been able to pick up a copy of that. But I have the corrected version of that. Now it's on the sans serif label, and also the P1965 is a little bit down from the YEX. So on the misspelling I was just talking about, on certain copies Norwegian wood will be spelled Norwiegian. So obviously that was wrong. And there's side 2, of course. And here's another copy of that exact same pressing, so that's just the same. And this is a third pressing copy from 1969. And here's the label. Like the mono version, it's got no sold in the UK text, but of course it's still got the stereo written up there. And there's side 2. And here's the fourth pressing from 69 to 70. And this of course is the one box pressing, still with the Gramophone Company Limited text there. And side 2. And here's the fifth pressing from 1971 until 1973, which has no flip backs on the cover there. And here's the 2 box with the Gramophone Company Limited. This is the 6th pressing from 1976 until 1980. And this is the version of the 2 box with the EMI Records Limited perimeter text. And here is the 7th pressing from 1980 until 1984. And this has the all rights of the producer perimeter text, public performance, broadcasting, copying and hiring. And here's the 8th pressing from 1984 until 1987. Now this label seems quite matte for some reason, so it'll be hard to say this, but still got the all rights of the producer perimeter text, and it's been slightly reorganised at the top, so it now says copying, hiring, public performance and broadcasting. And here's a ninth pressing from 87 until 91. And this is the version with the apple on the back. And this of course has the shiny 2-box label, as I like to call it. And this next copy is exactly the same as the one I've just shown. Now we move on to this copy, which is, believe it or not, the rarest copy of Rubber Soul that I have in my collection. Now it was produced sort of early 90s, and I would say it's quite possibly the biggest cock-up ever, and I'll show you why. By the way, this copy is in beautiful condition, and it has the apple on the back and the barcode up there. Now, Rubber Soul was always on parlophone, like every other Beatles album up to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. However, for some reason, there was a massive error in the early 90s, and they ended up pressing a copy of it on an Apple label. So we have a white Apple label, which is quite similar to the one that you see on John Lennon's first solo album. It sort of reminds me of that. Well, anyway, this is a white label apple. It's got white perimeter text as well, and it's got the same matrix numbers and the same cover as the parlophone version, just obviously it's pressed on Apple. And this is extremely hard to find, actually, so there mustn't have been too many of these pressed. And now for the final copy of Rubber Soul in my collection, and that is of course the 2003 Harlem pressing from Holland, with the Apple logo on the back, and also the 2-box label with the big groove in it.